Today I thought I would speak to you about the characteristics of enlightened beings. So, they may be called officially a guru, or they may be somebody very unknown. It doesn't really matter what the title is. I'll just give you the characteristics and personal traits of people who have joined with the soul. In the ancient Vedas of India, they call such people siddhas. S-I-D-D-H-A. It's just a name. It's this Sanskrit word for a self-realized person. What does this self-realized expression mean? If you really think about it, most people don't even know themselves. In other words, if I pose the question, who are you? Typically you're going to say something about your job, your physical presence, your personality, and your life story. And then yoga will say, well, none of that has anything to do with your essence. And if you get upset at yoga and say, why not? Yoga will say, the essence of you is a formless energy. It's made of consciousness. That Holy Spirit swirls around in the vessel of your body. And that's the essence of you. So if you think about it, most people have no idea who they are. Their life story is a collection of past images, memories, and perceptions that they glue together into their life story. Their bodies are constantly changing and not permanent. And their interpretation of the events are highly subjective. This is why in modern psychology, to quickly return health back to somebody's psyche, what you do is you have them change the interpretation of what happened. If you keep taking them back to events, they'll take years to recover. But if you take them to an event and have them take another look at the interpretation, they'll heal a lot faster. But there's a way that's even faster than that. So let's talk about this. In the old days, they used to make you go back to events, review the event so many times, so that at one point you would finally digest the shock that had been delivered to you because of some instance in the past. That was the archaic method. Keep going back to the event, review your outlook on that event until you swallowed it, digested it, and forgave it. That was the ancient psychological method. Then in more modern times, they take you back to the event, but they tell you the event was irrelevant because if 3 sisters were to encounter the same event, each of the sisters would have a different impression. So the event itself is not utter truth. It depends on how you look at it. So that's a faster method of healing, because when you adjust the way you look at an incident, then you can heal yourself by adjusting the perspective. There's one faster way which involves instantaneous healing. The instantaneous healing occurs when you realize that you're not your passing thoughts. You are not your moods. You are not even your life story, because what you call my life story is a series of snapshot pictures that you have pasted together along with your personal perceptions. And you identify with that story as the reality of you. So if you're not this story, according to yoga, who are you? You are the observer of everything that's happening. They call it being, capital B-E-I-N-G. Being is a very stable field of consciousness. It is the onlooker onto the events that are occurring around your physical body. As a matter of fact, yoga says anything visible that you see in the physical world is an illusion. Why would they say that? Because yoga says the minute you forget this subatomic source of physical matter, you are in illusion. So if you look at a watch and say this is a Rolex watch, you're already in illusion. Because if that watch is made of gold, then you're forgetting that the Rolex is just gold that's been crafted into a particular shape. So if you believe the Rolex too much, you are in illusion. The point is this: yoga says if you trace everything back to its root, then you are living in truth. So a realized person is not carried away by appearances. When they see a gold bracelet, they tend to understand that this is just gold, remolded into some other shape. A realized person doesn't believe all the diversity. Right now, all of us could go to downtown and we would see different colored shirts, dresses, different faces, and as we really start to believe all this diversity, the nervous system gets tired somehow. Diversity is nice, but if you believe it to be reality, it starts to fatigue you. The people who understand the truth of life keep going back to the source of life. The source of life is one pulse. It is a quantum, divine pulse residing beneath the atom. From the one came the many. That's the truth. Where you fall away from being a realized being is that you start to believe your own thoughts and your own impressions. So, if you're French and the sight of a vineyard in northern San Francisco makes you nostalgic because you say, I miss France. The reason you miss France when you see a vineyard elsewhere is because the image of a vineyard is something you saw during childhood. And because that's been imprinted on your subconscious, you take that image and you call it home. Whereas if we take a French lady and raise her in Zaire, then she's going to look at that desert land, and that desert land is going to make an imprint on her mind. So later when she sees a desert, she'll say, I miss my home. So the fact that you have so much love for your home, even that is based on memories and imprints. Go ahead and love your home, but I'm just telling you about the foundation of why you think that a place is your home. It's all memories. It's all impressions. This is why when you get to a stage of self-realization, you realize everything on the outside world starts to make an impression on my mind. Once those impressions set in, you start to believe in the reality of France. And then we get highly emotional because France has a flag and it's on the world map. But if you were the wind, would you know when you're crossing from France to Italy? If you were the wind, you would laugh at these notions. In other words, as you were going from Europe down to Greece, you would just see changing landscapes. But all of it would just be earth. And then you would find a pulse beneath the earth. So how does a realized person travel through Europe? They travel, their eyes see the diversity, but their soul remains non-changing as a witness of diverse scenery. So the realized person is not blind. They go to Venice, their eyes see the beauty, but they see it as one earth. And not only that, when they see anything visible and physical, they say, oh, this is temporary. This is not permanent. Because underneath the city of Venice, there's one pulse. There's only that one pulse. In terms of realized people, only a realized person can recognize a realized person. Why is that? Because when you become detached from your thoughts, when you become detached from your moods, you exhibit a particular type of energy. You're not depressed, you're not careless, you're not lazy, you're simply looking at the diversity, but knowing that there's a different reality sitting behind the diversity. With that kind of an attitude, only another person that has the same attitude can recognize you. This is why they say a siddha will recognize another siddha. And of course, one of the most misunderstood things in spirituality is this concept of detachment. Detachment is not depression, it's not lack of joy, it's not lack of inner freedom, it's none of those. Detachment means not believing the diversity of the apparent, visible world. Detachment means the only attachment you have is your constant communion with the one pulse of the Lord. Everything else is the creation of the one Lord. That's what detachment means. Realized people have a lot of physical energy because there's a surge of the Holy Spirit going through their veins. They typically look younger than their official age because they're vibrating highly. A high vibrating energy field tends to repair itself faster. Apparently after the age of 22 or 25, the rate of dying cells exceeds the rate of new cells being generated. That's when the aging process begins to show itself. Except, if you're vibrating very, very highly, then you become an energy field that can repair itself quite quickly. An example, if you take a chisel to a rock, it takes 100 years for that rock to repair itself. If you take a chisel to ice, after 3-4 hours, the melting ice repairs the dent or the crack. If you take a chisel to a lake, after a few seconds, the water repairs itself. So what am I saying? I'm saying the rock is in slower molecular motion relative to ice, and the ice moves with slower energy than water. And then if you poke a finger into a cloud, the repair time is a microsecond, because the molecules of the cloud are moving faster than the molecules of the water. I don't want to get into science here for the general audience. All I want to say to you is, when you meditate deeply, and when your identity changes to the identity of soul, which is non-solid, you age at a slower pace. You watch the face of a student coming out of deep, deep meditation, and they're naturally glowing. The minute you drop your persona, the minute you drop your life story, your beliefs, your ideologies, you start to become younger, because you become a dynamic energy field. Once you realize who you really are, once you realize that your essence is the same as that divine pulse, then everywhere else that you look, you see that same pulse. This is why you fall in love with the day. Somebody could treat you in a mean way. It doesn't matter. Beneath every physical form, you start to perceive the one holy divine pulse. Om, Om, Om. Plant, animal, human. When that happens, then the realized person falls into perfect harmony with society. One sign of a realized person is that they flow through society very smoothly. They don't clash. They don't get into arguments, philosophical arguments with people, because they see one truth. So if somebody says red and you say yellow, you say, so be it. It's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So another sign of a realized person is you actually fall in love with the apparent diversities. You don't believe in diversity, you believe in the one pulse. But if you talk to a black person, a Chinese person, Indian person, Persian person, underneath all of them you see one pulse. So if the skin color differs, you fall in love with them. You say, what a great God. Look at all these different flowers that God is creating. You develop a real tolerance for diversity, because each diverse face is a different flower of God. Because you see God in everybody, then you fall in love with the diversity of God's creations. Realized people are also more surrendered rather than forceful. So you can ask yourself, what is the difference between brute force and authentic power? You find that authentic power harnesses the natural forces so that while you're flowing with the current of the day, you're gaining power. Brute force means harnessing the power of the river for your own egotistical benefit. What nature says is, if your life becomes a leaf flowing on a river, eventually you gain more power than building a dam against that river. So brute force reeks of the word I, me, my benefit, my possession. Authentic power has the quality of flowing, harmony with society, harmony with nature. Love instead of aggression. Realized people also have this quality of knowing. How do they know? They don't know intellectually necessarily. What happens to the mind of a realized person is that they don't really believe their own chattering mind. The mantra of a realized person is never mind. I never mind my mind. So if you don't mind your mind, how do you keep your wits about you? Your real wits come from a field called consciousness. Consciousness is a silent gap between the thoughts. It's the gap between two breaths. If you take a long exhalation and then pause a long, long time at the end of the exhalation, you'll experience what I mean by consciousness. So, the mind of a realized person is still, in terms of the intellectual mind. It's still, it's concentrated, and it's also filled with knowingness. Knowingness means discernment, wisdom. That kind of knowingness comes from the quiet mind. There's a field of wisdom hiding behind the mind chatter. What does the personal identity of a realized person look like? They literally walk the earth certain that they are made of a holy electricity occupying the vase or container of the physical body. If you start walking the earth as Holy Spirit, as prana, as chi, occupying the vessel of the body, you will have no psychological issues. There will be no self-confidence issues, there will be no insecurities, there will be no lack of forgiveness regarding what happened to you when you were 7 years old, because you look at your life story and you see these snippets, these little pictures that you've pasted together with your own interpretation. So your habits fall away, your obsessions fall away, your lack of self-confidence falls away, all psychological obstacles fall away. Because your identity becomes one of light or spirit occupying the vessel of the body. I'm now going to say goodbye to you. So we'll speak soon about other facets of your